Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. Yay! I'm here with Karsta Marie, and she is going to share more about her and her story as we jump right into today's episode. So
jumping right in. Yeah. So my name is Karsta Marie. I am a mindset coach and motivational speaker. My little bit of my backstory is I sort of curated this picket fence life during college. After college, I curated this picket fence life that I then proceeded to endure. And it was fine. I tell people it was fine until it wasn't.
Mm.
And it all sort of, imploded around me. I continued then to try to live fine for as long as I could, and then just realized that I wanted more than fine. Fine wasn't good enough anymore for me. I wanted something epic. And so I made the decision to leave my teaching career of 22 years.
Wow.
And dive into speaking and coaching and start my own business. And it's definitely been a roller coaster, but that's what's gotten me here. And so I work with women to help them kind of do the same thing, to sort of realize like things are fine, but I deserve better than fine.
Mm-hmm. I love your mission, because how
Thank you.
often do we say that? Do we say, oh, I'm fine, and then nobody probes more, and we
Nope.
accept and or tolerate a life that isn't epic, as you
Right.
say. I love that you have that word in there.
Thank you.
So
And
let's,
I think
yeah,
too,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think too, it's we don't want to explore that farther either, right? Like it makes us really uncomfortable to admit we've spent time and money and energy creating something that we look back and now we're like, "Ooh, this is not what I wanted." That's hard to admit for a lot
Yeah,
of people.
it is. What have you found in working with women about what gets them to the point, or what got you to the point to get past that?
Yeah, I feel like it was a series of divine interventions. I was fortunate enough to be a part of a network marketing company for a while I was still teaching, and it helped me sort of see that something different was possible. Because I think a lot of times what happens is we don't know, right? We don't know what we don't know. And
Mhm.
so when I was in college, I just sort of what I saw people building around me was really all I knew. And I knew I didn't want what I'd had sort of in my childhood, because that was pretty tumultuous. And I always tell people like those things didn't define me, but they definitely impacted me. Right. And I got to college and sort of thought, okay, well, I don't want that. And so the only other thing I saw was, like I said, sort of that picket fence, right? Like all of my friends, all but one of my friends are teachers, and they were all either engaged or already married. And so it was just sort of that's what made sense. And I think a lot of us do that. And then I just had the opportunity to finally realize that, wait, there's this whole other world that I hadn't even known was out there. And I'd had inklings of it along the way, right? Like I always tell people like when I was trying to decide on a major, I was a Spanish major, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? And I had this incredible vision of being an international businesswoman, like jet setting around the world and like carrying my Louis Vuitton. I could like feel it almost in my bones, but it didn't really make sense. It was so bizarre, right? From what I was
Oh,
seeing.
I love
And
it
so
though.
I know, and I wish I would have pursued it. Obviously, I firmly believe we take the path we're meant to take, and I got here for a reason. But I often think back, like, wow, that would have been incredible, and yet I was so scared. And I know your message is about confidence. I did not have the confidence back then to say, no, this vision really excites me. Let me do it. I
Mhm.
dabbled a little. I took accounting 101 and I was like, oh, this is really hard. I don't like it. But I never let it flourish into what it could be.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yep.
amazing how we spend this time and just, again, I know I've said it already, but the tolerance that we live with. And
Mhm.
I'm curious, what do you think, like, think about advice for someone who is stuck in that place, or maybe I guess if we don't realize it, we don't know that there's
Mhm.
no change. But let's say for those women that know there's something more, but they can't quite take that next step, or they don't know how, what would you offer?
I always say, like, I did it the hard way. I threw the baby out with the bathwater, and it was like, I always say, if you watch HGTV, I had like renoed my entire being down to the studs and was starting over. And I don't recommend that. um, but it for me, it became about, and what I help my clients do is get some clarity around the vision of really what, if what you have isn't making you happy, let's really get some clarity about what really would. And that might include pieces that are in existence. That's why you don't need to demolish all of it. And I think that's the scary part for a lot of women or people, right? Is that it feels like if I'm not happy with what I have, then I must have to demo the whole thing.
Oh,
And it's
that's a good point.
right. And you don't have to. It's about small things daily,
Mm.
setting daily intentions about, if this is really the vision I have for myself, what can I do today to be that version of myself? Just
Mhm,
today.
mhm.
Is it going for a walk instead of watching an extra episode on Netflix? Is it um, maybe taking a rest day instead of grinding away? Is it grinding away instead of being late? Whatever that might be. What does that look like? And just doing very intentional, purposeful action every day towards a very clear vision. Because I didn't have that when I started on this. I literally was running away from what I didn't want
Mm.
instead of moving toward what I did want. And I think that that's a crucial first step, is even if you don't have 100% clarity, we've got to get some clarity for you first so you
Mhm.
know where you're going. I always tell people Siri or Google Maps can't take you somewhere if you don't give it a final destination first.
Very, very true. My gosh,
So,
such a good analogy.
yeah,
So true. Well,
right.
tell me about, because I'm curious to know now that you're living this epic lifestyle.
We're working on it. We're building it.
You're building it, fair enough. I mean, I was thinking that's a high goal. I remember with my coach years ago, I said, I want to live an extraordinary life every day. And
Right.
she was cute because she goes, you also have to remember, Karen, that there are some days that are gonna just be ordinary, and that's okay.
Right. Well, and I tell people too, your definition of extraordinary is probably different than mine.
Yeah.
I really like, are there pieces of my life that I'm still working on? Of course, because it's always going to be like that. But the infrastructure that I have right now is
Mhm.
set in place to continue to grow what for me will be extraordinary. So right now I am living an extraordinary life because that's in place.
That's so awesome. And that's such a good reminder of it needs to be
Mhm.
put in place, like you said, the vision. Well, do you remember a moment where you felt like I have reached this level of confidence and you felt so empowered?
Yeah, I shortly after, so for those of you listening Karen and I met in a speakers group. And
Yes.
shortly after I joined that group, and we were in the heart of quarantine, and I was in my I'm in a tiny little, like, less than 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom apartment with my youngest daughter right now, which was li not necessarily planned, but it's what I mean, I enjoy it. I like just small space, and that was fine. But I got up from my computer one day in the midst of going through that course, and I looked around my cozy little space, and for the first time in my entire life, I felt at home. Like,
Wow.
I just had this sense of, "Oh my gosh, I'm really at home," and I felt comfortable in my own skin, and, certainly you have fears and doubts, but I felt at home, and it just was reassurance that I am on the right path. Like, things might not look exactly how I want them to right now, but I am on the right path.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's such a good reminder about the path I mean, you hear that all the time, like it's the journey, value the journey. And yet
Right.
sometimes that can be frustrating when we just want to get
Right.
to the destination.
I know.
But it's really such a good reminder when you say that. It makes me think about milestones and the importance of celebrating each of those milestones and where
Right.
you're at and loving and accepting yourself in those moments.
Yeah.
So how about, since most of us connect through vulnerability and mistakes,
I
can
wrote
you
a little
share?
note about that. So you go ahead and ask your question.
I know that you already shared vulnerably about don't do it like I did and that kind of thing. But is there an example specifically about a mistake that you made that you'd like to share and bring us into that that you would do differently now, or what you learned from it?
Yeah, I really think it was that, like, jumping off the cliff. I think that that was the thing I would do differently. Like, that's kind of how I am. That's my personality. But what I've learned along the way is to slow my roll sometimes. Um, and really listen to my instincts about things.
Mm,
Sometimes I get really excited, like I'll see an idea or I'll see another speaker do something or another coach or I'll be like, oh, I need to do that, right? Shiny objects.
yes.
But remembering that my journey has a certain, like I have a vision for what it's going to look like. And to remember that the shiny objects are going to distract me from that
Mm,
and to just kind of stay the course. And to I think the other big mistake that I made was thinking, because I heard early on in my journey, once I sort of made the decision, was once you're in alignment with what you're supposed to do, it all becomes easy. And I went, oh, okay. And so I kind of sat back and went, okay, well, let's let it happen. There is a difference between easy and effortless,
Ooh, say
right?
more about that.
It's not easy. It is hard work to do what we do. But because it's in alignment with what my vision is, it's in alignment with who I am, it is effortless work.
Mm,
It's
beautiful.
right. Like yes,
Yes.
it takes effort, but it's effortless. It doesn't cost me a lot of energy. And I think that that's a big thing that I speak with women on. If you're wondering, right? Because you alluded to this a little bit ago about like some people don't even know that they're sort of stuck in that fine.
Right. Right.
If you feel like you are exerting more energy into your life or an area of your life
Mhm.
than you are getting in return, I would say there should be at least an equal exchange. If not, it should fill you more. So, like for me right now, all the things I do, like I know you're a night owl, and I was up late last night doing some things, but it felt effortless. I was okay doing it. I wasn't sitting here begrudgingly going, oh my gosh, I got to get this done. It was just like, okay, well, I got to hurry and get this done because I'm getting a little tired, but it wasn't this begrudging energy that went into it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
I love your definition of that, because when I think about when I worked at a company, and of course there would be things we would work on for the client and that kind of thing. And even when I was working for the company, I let's just face it, you don't want to do certain things sometimes, but
Right.
the joy of knowing this is going to serve somebody and I'm still doing the thing that I want. So in part, I'm saying that even when I was at a company, I felt that way, but now it's even more exciting because
Right.
it's me calling the shots. And like last night, I was preparing for a big client speaking engagement today.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, oh, like I just want to relax and watch Netflix.
Right.
But those moments when you go, but I know that this is going to help and it's going to make a difference and
Yeah.
I'm going to feel so much better. And then I have to say, then the exciting payoff is that something does go well. And you
Right.
can look at, some people call it the fruits of your labor or
Yeah.
the accomplishments that you had. And today, what was so fun for me is right after the engagement, within 5 minutes, we talked by phone and they said, we're already talking about having you back. And that's the
Yay.
best and
Yeah.
incredible compliment of all. So
Yeah.
then when you know and you can say, I did that, not
Right.
anybody else. I wasn't looking to anybody else to do it. And it's
Right.
that, to me, that's a moment of excitement with confidence for sure.
Yes. Well, and I think too, I think so often we think that failure is what diminishes our confidence, right? Like, oh, I'm afraid to fail. And if I fail, it's good. I've found that actually what diminishes my confidence more is relying on somebody else, because then I'm telling myself I'm not capable.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Right. And like, because I've really had to learn, I've always known I've had a very strong intuition about things, but I've always stifled it, I've always looked to others for guidance, like, oh, well, I think this. And then somebody else will say, oh, no, that's not right. And so like, oh, okay, well, they must be right. I'm wrong. Right. Yeah.
Me too. I'm raising my hand for those of you
Right.
who
Yeah.
are listening just to audio. Yes.
Right. So
Exactly.
but what I've learned is my confidence has grown as I've continued to follow my own intuition and trust it, and then have it reinforced by, whatever higher being you believe in. Um, when you're doing the right things for yourself, that's what's built my confidence, is just trusting myself.
That's so good. I will say that's very similar to what happened with me and my old job. My boss was so great about saying, like, I would come to a meeting and I would have all of I would bring all the details and I would tell everybody, well, what do you think? And one time she really threw me for a loop and she goes, I don't know, Karen. She was a little snarky. What do you think? And I was so surprised. And she said, you often do this. You come to meetings and you don't say what you think right away. And truthfully, Karsta, I mean, for me at that time, I didn't feel 100% confident
Uh-huh.
in certain things. Like you're saying, I might
Yeah.
change my answer based on what other people say or what other people
Right.
think is more popular or whatever. And it was so incredibly helpful for her to stop me and say that, even though
Right.
it was very scary. And it did make me think, what do I think? And I would say also for many of us, owning our choices can be really hard when we're not used to that.
Yeah, for sure. But again, I think once you own it, like good or bad, like I can own the fact that like diving off the cliff for me was not my best choice,
Yeah.
but there were skills that I had to learn from that
Mm-hmm.
that have built my confidence. So even if in the moment something feels like a quote unquote failure, it usually, if you've followed yourself, you're going to also get yourself out of it, right? Like if I follow somebody else's direction and then I find myself stuck or lost,
Yes.
well, now what do I do? But if I'm responsible for getting myself stuck or lost, I have the own tools within me to get myself out.
Yes, that's so good.
Yeah.
That reminds me of my milestone moment when I was sitting in a meeting that I was leading. My boss had suggested something when I was on a leadership team for a company, and months back said, well, we should do this or that. And so the whole time I remember thinking, I'm not exactly sure. Like months went by and I wasn't exactly sure why we were doing it. It didn't feel right to me,
Mhm.
but I went with it. And I'm telling you, it was so embarrassing because I'm at the meeting and I tried to stumble my way through it. I was so unaligned with why are we doing this in the first place? To your
Mhm.
point, maybe that was her idea, but it was so I didn't trust myself. And then after she saved me in a really gracious way, but then afterwards she coached me and said, this was a great example where you didn't trust your gut.
Mhm.
And you could have said, everybody, let's just take a time out. I don't even remember why we were doing it this way.
Yep.
Let's table this and do it another time. The fact that she presented that as an option or alternative was so unexpected to me. And I remember thinking, oh, like I could actually say that. Again, my upbringing was you listen to what that
Yep.
authority figure says and you do what they say no matter what.
Right. Yeah.
But at the expense of then looking stupid because it didn't add value for anybody anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what came to mind when you said that. Wow. Well, what else? What were you gonna
No,
say?
it's just all the big discovery for me is the interconnectedness of all of it.
Say more about
Like just my confidence connected to my happiness, connected to my choices, connected to my intuition, like all of the pieces that seem so isolated. And I heard this phrase once early on, um, when I was first a coach a few years ago, and I understood it, but now it's really an internalized thing where how you show up in one area is how you're going to show up in all areas, right? And I remember thinking, well, yeah, duh. But I think, again, for those who might be listening who maybe don't think they're stuck or don't realize they're stuck, if you have an area of your, just one area, it doesn't have to be your whole life, but if you have one area that really feels misaligned, that's impacting all the other pieces of your life, your physical health, your relationships, your family dynamics, just all of it is so intertwined. And so I would just encourage people listening to just take a deeper look, right? And it costs nothing to journal. It costs nothing to have some conversations with yourself, to even just see and say, okay, why does this feel out of alignment? Or why is this something here just doesn't feel quite right? What's the rub? And just to kind of investigate a little bit. It costs nothing. And you don't even have to tell your partner yet, right? You just have to sort of start the process of investigating what's not working.
Oh, I like that a lot. Just starting
Yeah.
the process. That's such a good takeaway of, well, what's one thing everybody could do?
Yeah. Just start investigating.
Yeah, so good. Well, Karsta, anything that I haven't asked that you want me
Oh,
to ask, or any last thoughts that you want to leave people with?
no, this has been a wonderful conversation. I mean, you and I can talk for hours about all these
I
things.
know, exactly. Well, and I love so much about what you talked about related to, yeah, just, I mean, I think about it as, where are we hiding ourselves? I know we didn't flat out say that, but how are we hiding our personalities? How are we hiding our true selves behind what other people think or what we think other
Yep.
people want? And then you're looking around for all these other people to define you. And I
Yep.
always like to tell people, you get to define yourself.
Yes.
Anybody else do it? Yeah.
100%. 100%.
So I think that all of this is so great, and the exploration, and then I also think the not feeling like we have to just arrive or do it all at once, and we can do these baby steps that help us get closer. And then one of the
Mhm.
things that I've noticed, I don't know about you, but in my own personal growth journey, like growth, you don't usually see it immediately. It usually
Right.
comes up when, for me, it's when I've noticed, oh, I responded differently in a situation where I might have been
Mhm.
triggered before.
Yes. Yeah. Like for me, today is a perfect example of that. I used to be one where if the slightest thing derailed one piece of my day, like my whole day was shot. I would have like emailed you and been like, nope, sorry, we can't record today. And I would have like trashed my whole day. And I didn't today. I showed up for myself because I know that future version of myself, or that version that I am desiring to, that's what she does. She just shows up.
Ooh, yes.
So
I love
yeah,
that. She just shows up.
she shows
Ooh,
up.
maybe that'll be the title of this episode. All right. Well, we'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
Karsta, where can people reach you that want to find you?
Yep. So I have a website, karstamarie.com. So it's kind of right now, it's sort of a warehouse, so to speak, of all, like, if they just want to kind of get to know me a little bit better. I'm on Instagram. That's where I show up most often, but I'm also on Facebook. I have a free Facebook group, um, where we kind of talk about some of these things. I go in there weekly and share little nuggets of how things are going every week. And then I'm trying to get better about being on Clubhouse. But Instagram, and I have a love hate with Clubhouse, but Instagram, my website, and Facebook are probably the easiest places to find me.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks so much for being here.
Well,
I
thank you. I'm glad we made this work.
Yes, me too. And I'm excited for everybody to hear it. So, and
Yeah,
get to know more of your brilliance.
wonderful. Thank
All right,
you.
Karsta, have a good day.
You too.
And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.